On May 3, 2023, it was widely reported that the Kremlin in Moscow was attacked by 2 drones believed to be from Ukraine. Russia claims that it was an attempt on President Putin's life. The Ukrainian side, of course, denies this, but as you all know, there are conflicting views that the US is behind this, or that this is a Russian false flag operation. In the past, the Western media would have reported it as a Russian false flag all at once. This time, however, we can see that the media coverage is a little different. What you are about to see is a report from a British public broadcaster. Of course, it does not support the Russian claim, but please take a look.
A camera happened to catch the moment the drone descended on the Kremlin and was blown up by air defenses. The Russians say there were 2 drones 15 minutes apart at 2:27 and 2:43 a.m. and they're blaming Ukraine. At first light, security officials climbed up to look at the damage. Whatever the Russians claim, this wasn't an assassination attempt. President Putin's whereabouts are top secret, and he rarely if ever sleeps in the Kremlin. The Ukrainians know that. If they were responsible, which they deny, it might have been an attempt to show that Ukraine can strike at the heart of President Putin's power, just as Red Square is being prepared for the Victory Day parade next Tuesday. But the attack also plays into Moscow's narrative that Russia is under threat from Ukraine and the West. Remarkably, they'd already made no drone signs to be installed in Red Square this morning. Russian TV said it was a planned terrorist attack by Ukraine, targeting the Russian head of state. President Putin was shown unharmed meeting the governor of Nizhny Novgorod, apparently in his residence outside Moscow. The incident may help him sell the idea that Russia is the victim of this war and more men should sign up to fight. President Zelensky, meeting Nordic leaders in Helsinki, denied that Ukraine was responsible.
We don't attack Putin or Moscow. We fight on our territory. We are defending our villages and cities. We don't have, enough weapon for this. That's why we don't use it anywhere. For us, that is the deficit. We can't spend it. And we didn't attack Putin. We leave it to tribunal.
And yet Ukraine has been attacking targets inside Russia. This oil depot in Krasnodar was hit yesterday, reportedly by a Ukrainian drone. Ukraine frequently denies such attacks or simply says nothing. Last night, a train was blown up and derailed in Bryansk, just over the Russian side of the border, seemingly an attempt to disrupt Russian supply lines. Attacking Red Square, though, would be a significant symbolic escalation, just as Ukraine readies for its much-heralded spring offensive, and Russia prepares its population for what could be a long war.
Russia reserves the right to retaliate in a manner, place and time of its choosing, the statement noted. Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov told journalists that the president was absent from the Kremlin when the drones were downed. The U.S. Embassy in Kiev has advised Americans to not ignore any potential air raid sirens and to shelter appropriately. Be aware that even if the incoming missile or drone is intercepted, falling debris represents a significant risk, the U.S. Embassy said in the alert. They added that any American still in Ukraine must have a contingency plan that does not rely on U.S. government assistance, and should depart the country when it is safe to do so. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev urged Moscow to retaliate against President Volodymyr Zelensky. After today's terrorist act, there are no options left but the physical removal of Zelensky and his clique, Medvedev wrote on Telegram. However, it does not seem to have been reported that extensively in Russia. There is no indication that the incident is being used to incite hostility, as the Western media would have it. The head of the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, Alexei Reznikov, did not confirm or deny the involvement of the Ukrainian armed forces in the attack, saying that Moscow should blame itself. Later, Washington said that the United States does not encourage Kyiv to strike at the territory of the Russian Federation. On May 3, Volodymyr Zelensky participated in a summit between Ukraine and the Nordic countries. Finland departed in an unknown direction, RIA Novosti correspondent reported. The next day, The 4th, Zelensky showed up for a surprise visit to the Hague International Criminal Court. Not, of course, to turn himself in.
Hello, I'm Lukwesa Burak. Ukraine's President Zelensky is visiting The Hague, where he's just given an impassioned speech calling for President Putin to be sentenced for his criminal actions over the invasion of Ukraine. So let's listen in to what President Zelensky said when he addressed The Hague a short time ago.
Lasting peace after victory is achieved by nothing else but the strength of values. First of all, it's the strength of freedom and of law, which must work to the full of ensure justice, not hybrid promises instead of human rights. Real freedom, not hybrid impunity and symbolic formalities, but full-scale justice. Not hybrid peace and constant flashes of violence on the front line, but reliable peace when one respects values. True freedom, true justice, true peace is respected instead of hybrid forms. But it's exactly what we need now. Of course, we all want to see different Vladimir here in The Hague.
In other words, Zelensky is insisting that Putin be sentenced for other war crimes as soon as possible. However, it is becoming doubtful to what extent the West can support the righteousness of this man. In the United States, the Biden family's involvement in human trafficking is being pursued. Marjorie Taylor Greene points out that trafficking in pedophiles may have involved a Ukrainian orphanage. This is a story that fundamentally undermines even the legitimacy of the arrest warrant now being issued by the ICC. It accuses the side that is protecting orphans from the human trafficking business of war crimes. Since mid-April, there have been a number of stories about how relations between the West and Ukraine are not as they have been in the past. In Japan, though, it remains the same.